All right, family, welcome in. So we are on episode 4 of my Wealth Codes series. And I just want to take a quick moment to say thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for walking with me on this journey as it's pivotal, it's powerful. We're in a crossroads right now where a lot of things are happening. I'm just here to help. That being said, episode 4, we're going to talk about how the world is going digital. All right, the world's going digital, and remember, this is about wealth codes. So, if the world's going digital, how does that impact you and your money? All right, so that being said, you may have heard a lot about cryptocurrencies, digital currencies, etc. I want to break down the difference between like what even is that? What is a digital currency? What is a cryptocurrency? So, and today I'm going to help you with that, as well as why the world is looking at cryptocurrency so heavily. We hear a lot about it on the news these days, and why you should be paying attention. In fact, need to be paying attention. So, we'll dive into that. But first things first, what is digital currency? So, digital currency is any form of money that exists purely in electronic form, right? So, when we look at our bank accounts and, we get to swipe in that debit card, all these kind of things, that frankly is already kind of like a hybrid of digital currency. Most of us don't walk around with a lot of cash these days, right? So it's in digital or electronic form. Frankly, most of the banks don't even have the amount of cash that you have maybe saved up. Like if you just wanted to walk in and get $100,000 out, they don't have that just ready at the bank, right? So it's stored digitally. That being said, cryptocurrency is within that realm, right? So cryptocurrency is a type of digital currency, but specifically, cryptocurrency specializes in using what's called cryptography, okay, to secure transactions and control the creation of any new units, okay, new units, new measurements, whatever it is that's within that crypto system or platform. I don't want to dive too deep in it because I don't want to overwhelm. Just high level, I want you to really understand when people use these phrases, they're not to be used interchangeably because they're not actually the same thing. All right. So in short, all cryptocurrencies are digital currencies, right? But not all digital currencies are cryptocurrencies, right? Cryptocurrencies are a very specific niche of types of investments. So you just got to know that off top. All right. So why digital currency? Why is the world paying attention? Well, the world, first off, is going increasingly digital, right? So whether it's like our phones, everybody has a phone now. Pretty much everybody has a phone. Not just any phone, they got the smartphone, right? The one that can access the internet and do all these different apps and engage with life while you're on the go, right? Um, the world is increasingly digital for convenience, right? Speed of things, global reach, well, these are all the same reason that digital currency is blowing up, right? Convenience, speed, global reach. Well, it's actually giving access to those who haven't traditionally had access to financial resources. They actually are gaining from the advent of digital currencies. So just something to consider. So that's the why. Why is the world paying attention? Now the pros and cons, because there's pros and cons. If you've ever heard me give a presentation in the world of finances and investments, there are pros and cons to every decision that's made and everything that we interact with. So digital currencies are no different. Pros and cons. Well, you can have on the pro side decentralization. So what does that mean? We have our Federal Reserve in the United States, right? That is a centralized bank. Everything runs in the monetary system through the Federal Reserve. Well, there there'd be a lot of people that would argue that that's not a good thing because it comes with a lot of control. So decentralization when it comes to currencies can be viewed as a good thing because it's not one thing or one place that controls everything. It's various entities and organizations that come together to create that control. That's decentralization. Another pro, lower transaction costs. So, right, when we go buy things, let's say you want to go buy real estate, for example. If you ever bought a house, you know that there's all these different fees that come with buying a house because you got to get the title company and you got to pay these fees for this and that. It's just always something that's adding up. If you send a wire, right, there's a transaction cost, a wire transfer. And so, though subtly, digital currencies had the potential to lower transaction costs. I'm going to say potential because, frankly, the companies that are coming out with these digital currencies can just add these random costs and fees in if they want to, but it has the potential to lower transaction costs for sure. Okay. And fast and borderless transactions. So, just like I was talking about, if you want to go buy real estate or you want to go buy things maybe across the world, it kind of gets tied up into this time intensive process of bureaucracy, of dealing with the local government, the local banks, and does your bank communicate with that bank and all these kind of things. Where cryptocurrencies, digital currencies are kind of Xing out the middleman if they don't need the middleman, right? So that creates transactions a lot faster um, to get things done, right? So imagine a world where we're able to get transactions completed. If you're a business owner or want to start a business, you're able to work with people halfway across the world at a much faster clip, right? And get paid for your services at a much faster clip. Now, for the downside, obviously, this is a new world, so things can be volatile as far as the price or asset value of these things. So let's say Bitcoin, you may have heard like at one point several years ago, it was at 60,000 and then it got down to 18,000 per coin, right? That's pretty volatile, right? Some people got in at 40, 50, $60,000 and then it comes crashing down to 18,000 and you're panicking, right? You don't necessarily had that same confidence because you're watching this and you're not used to your currency that you put money into just doing all of that. You're just not used to it. It's uncomfortable, right? But so it's volatile. It can be volatile. And Bitcoin is just one digital currency. There are many different types. I just am using that because it's the one that's popular that most people hear about on the news. Um, Next reason that it can be a con is regulation issues. So again, this is a new industry, a new sector of the economy, and so when something's brand new like that, kind of in infancy stages, you got to work through pain points. You got to work through people getting over and there being no regulation to stop people from doing bad things or stupid things, right? You got to figure out which governments are going to allow what and all these kind of things. They're taking people to court over something that they don't even have regulations for, but they're just trying to hold up the process because things are moving a little quick, right? Hint, hint. That's we've seen that. Um, so those that can be a con, right? If you're an investor. And lastly, and we're going to talk more about this towards the end, but control digital currency, really everything going digital, um, can be have an issue of control because at the highest levels, everything being on a digital system can be controlled or manipulated. No way around that. So, for example, um, if you are a bad person, I'm gonna use specific word choice here. If you are a bad person and the government decides that you are an issue, right? Or you're planning something that is bad, they can legally get into your phone, right? Um, and if everything's digital, it's going to be pretty easy for that information to be accessed. Now, that can be a good thing for the average person. If you're stopping a crime, that's great. But I think we've seen in history where there are times where there's overreach and too much control has taken place, and we didn't even do anything, but you're taking control anyway, right? There was no harm, no foul, but the reality is they have that control, so they just took it, right? So just keep that in mind. We're gonna move on from that. Next, why you right need to be paying attention to digital currency. So when I say you, I mean you as the individual. Don't worry about your auntie and your cousin and your mom and dad and grandparents. Don't worry about what nobody, your friends, don't know worry about what nobody else is saying. Why do you as an individual need to be paying attention to digital currency? First and foremost, early mover benefits. I'll give you an example. Um, well, before I give you the example, let me make sure we're on the same page. So early mover benefits. So those that own digital assets before the switch will be buying into these currencies and these assets at the cheapest entry points, right? So if you bought Bitcoin at $1,000 and it's now at $100,000, did pretty well for yourself now, didn't you? Right? Versus somebody that's finally start to wrap their mind around it and be like, all right, maybe I do need that, right? You could have had 100,000, or sorry, you could have had hundreds of Bitcoins, right? And be very, very rich if you just would have been paying attention earlier in the game. All right. Um, and then as far, continuing on the early mover benefits, realize that trillions of dollars globally are going to have to circulate into this new system. It's just a matter of time. It's not a question of if, but when. Really wrap your mind around the fact that trillions still need to enter this space. Okay? It's not a matter of if it's going to. This is happening. And the signs are everywhere on that. But we're not, that's not this video. I'm not spending a lot of time there. Okay? Moving down. Being informed. If you're informed now, that can help protect your privacy and your sovereignty, right? Your individualism, even your energy. It can protect that. So what do I mean by that? Well, there are things that are called digital wallets and cold wallets at that. Specifically, a cold wallet is what I'm talking about. What does that mean? So think of like a little pocket device, the device you can just stick right in your pocket that can plug into a computer and you can download your digital energy because that's remember currency. We just last episode we talked about energy, your digital currency. It can download that to you locally, right? So you keep it in your local wallet. It is not plugged into a system or into a bank where it's constantly monitored. Right now, you have the ability to do these things and to invest in new different cryptocurrencies and assets that are known to be more private and not centralized as of now. The question is, as we continue to evolve and move further into the digital currency conversation, are we always going to have that? I'm going to tell you right now, and this leads into my next point, control is coming. And I don't want you to think about control in a digital landscape, even though that's the case. Control meaning they imagine you can't walk into a grocery store without having a digital implant in your hand. Remember, you couldn't if you didn't have that vaccine, you couldn't go into many restaurants. You couldn't fly on a plane. You couldn't. You had to prove that you had certain things and that you had injected certain things, have done certain things, whatever. Well, if we go more digital, that control is going to be that much more tight because things again can be accessed remotely. And for example, the government already has access to your bank accounts, right? We've seen that they will garnish wages or shut down bank accounts if you're going against certain systems and certain beliefs. So control is coming. And if as we go more digital, it's something to really watch out for. And so, in conclusion, I want you to know that we're in the ninth inning of a doubleheader. Okay, but the ninth inning of the first game of that doubleheader. All right, so there's two games. We're almost done with the first one. We're wrapping it up. This is what I'm trying to compare to the old world that's coming to a close and the new world that's being birthed. We're very close. Like that's happening this year. And again, all the signs are there. They're telling you in your face. It's just whether or not you want to believe it. In fact, what happened while everything was going on between Israel and Iran? And we as the U.S. went ahead and dropped bombs to take out that nuclear facility in Iran. What happened? What did the government pass during that time? Everybody's watching over here, and what was the government doing over there? They went ahead and passed that Genius Stablecoin Act. We didn't even talk about what a stablecoin is, but that is also included in the digital currency conversation. See, these things are happening and coming whether we like it or not. And they'll implement these things in ways where we're so worried about other things or entertainment that they're ushering these things in right up under your nose. It's like you get to see it, but are you paying attention? Because there's always going to be distractions. All right. So with that being said, realize that this new world is coming. It's here. And I need you to now call to action, do a conscious assessment of your understanding of digital currencies. If you feel you need more support, visit my website at reawakenconsulting.net and book a session. I'm here to help. All right. But most importantly, you do the conscious assessment of where your understanding of this digital landscape is. Digital currencies, cryptocurrencies. Do you get it? Because I told you we're about to start the second, the double header, the second leg of the double header, which is the new world, and it'll get to a point where it's the haves and the have-nots. And I really hope you're part of the haves. That's why I'm having this conversation. I love y'all. Peace.